The morning came too quickly. Taiho stood at the entrance of the Temple of Visions. It was an ancient building made of black stone, hidden deep in the mountains behind the royal palace. Strange symbols covered every surface, glowing faintly with purple light. The air around it felt cold and heavy, like something was watching from the shadows. A large crowd had gathered to watch. The queen stood at the front, her face calm but her eyes full of worry. Princess Yuna stood beside her, clutching her mother's hand tightly. Even General Quan was there, his arms crossed over his chest. Waiting to see the human fail, the old priest walked toward Taiho and placed a hand on his shoulder. "Once you enter," he said quietly, "you will be alone. The temple will show you visions designed to break your spirit. They will feel completely real. Pain, fear, loss, you will experience all of it as if it is truly happening." He looked at Taiho with serious eyes. "The only way to survive is to remember that it is not real. No matter what you see, no matter what you feel, you must hold onto yourself. Do not let the visions consume you." Taiho nodded. He reached into his pocket and touched the memory stone that Yuna had given him. It was warm against his fingers, and somehow that warmth gave him courage. "I understand," he said. "I am ready." The great doors of the temple opened slowly, revealing only darkness inside. Taiho took a deep breath and walked forward. The doors closed behind him with a heavy sound, and suddenly he was alone in the dark. For a moment, nothing happened. He stood there, waiting, his heart beating fast in his chest. Then the visions began. The darkness around him changed. He was no longer in the temple. He was standing in a street on Earth. But something was wrong. The buildings were on fire. The sky was filled with smoke. Bodies lay everywhere. People he knew, people he loved. He saw his mother lying on the ground, her eyes closed, her hand reaching out for him. "No," he whispered, running toward her. "No, this is not real. This is not real." But it felt real. The heat of the fire, the smell of smoke, the sound of screaming. Everything was so real that his heart felt like it was being torn apart. He fell to his knees beside his mother's body and cried. He screamed. He begged the universe to take it back, to make it stop. But then he remembered Yuna's words. He remembered the memory stone in his pocket. "This is not real," he said out loud, his voice shaking. "My mother is safe. She is on Earth. She is alive." He stood up slowly, forcing himself to look away from the terrible scene around him. "You cannot break me," he said to the darkness. "I know what you are trying to do, but I am stronger than this." The vision changed. Now he was floating in space. His ship was destroyed, pieces of metal spinning around him. His suit was damaged, and air was leaking out slowly. He was going to die, alone in the cold darkness between stars. He felt the fear rising in his chest. This was one of his deepest terrors. The idea of dying alone, far from home, with no one to remember him. But again, he fought back. He closed his eyes and thought about Yuna. He thought about the way she smiled at him, the way she believed in him without any doubt. She was counting on him. He could not give up. "I am not alone," he said firmly. "I have people waiting for me. I have a purpose, and I will not die here." The vision broke apart like glass. Now he stood in a great battle. Shadow creatures surrounded him, just like the ones in the old drawings. They were huge and terrible, made of pure darkness. Their eyes glowed red, and their mouths were filled with sharp teeth. One of them lunged at him, its claws reaching for his throat. Taiho did not run. He stood his ground and faced the creature directly. "I am not afraid of you," he said. His voice was steady now, strong. "I have faced death. I have faced loss. I have faced every fear you can show me. And I am still standing." The creature screamed and attacked him. But as they touched him, they began to fade. Their darkness could not hold against his light. One by one, they disappeared, until he stood alone in an empty space. A voice spoke from the darkness. It was deep and ancient, like the sound of stars dying. "You have passed our test, human. Your spirit is strong, stronger than we expected. You are indeed the one the prophecy speaks of." Light flooded into the room. Taeho found himself back in the temple, standing in front of the entrance. He had survived. The doors opened and sunlight poured in. Outside, the crowd was waiting in silence. When they saw Taeho walk out, alive and whole, a gasp went through them. No one had expected him to survive. Most people who entered the temple came out broken, if they came out at all, but here he was, standing tall, his eyes clear, his spirit unbroken. Princess Yuna broke free from her mother's hand and ran toward him. She threw herself into his arms, crying and laughing at the same time. "I knew it," she said, her voice muffled against his chest. "I knew you would survive. I knew you were the guardian." Taeho held her tightly, his own eyes wet with tears. He looked over her head at the crowd. The priests were bowing. The scholars were whispering in amazement. Even General Quan looked shocked, though he tried to hide it. The queen walked toward them slowly. Her expression was different now. The suspicion was gone. In its place was something like respect. "You have proven yourself, Park Taeho," she said formally. "No one has ever walked out of the Temple of Visions with their mind fully intact. You are the first, human or Valari." She took a deep breath. "I was wrong to doubt you. I was wrong to doubt my daughter. The prophecy is true. You are the guardian from the stars." She knelt down in front of him. The queen of the Valari Empire, ruler of 1,000 worlds, knelt before a simple human diplomat. The crowd gasped in shock. "I ask for your protection," she said, her voice humble. "Not as a queen, but as a mother. Please protect my daughter. Please protect my people when the darkness comes." Taeho felt the weight of her words. This was more than he had ever imagined. He was just a normal person. He had no special powers, no great army, no magic abilities. But somehow, he had become something more. He gently released Yuna and knelt down to face the queen at eye level. "Your Majesty," he said, "I do not know what the future holds. I do not know if I can defeat this darkness or save your people. I am just a human, with all the weaknesses that come with that." He looked at Yuna, who was watching him with those bright golden eyes. "But I can promise you this. I will never stop trying. I will never give up. I will stand between your daughter and any danger that comes for her. I will fight until my last breath, and even then, I will keep fighting." He stood up and helped the queen to her feet. "That is what humans do," he said. "We fight. We survive. We never give up, no matter how dark things get." The queen smiled. It was a real smile, warm and genuine. "Then, we are honored to have you, Guardian. From this day forward, you are a friend of the Valari Empire. Our resources, our ships, our warriors, all of it is at your command." She turned to face her people. "Let the galaxy know," she announced loudly. "The prophecy has been fulfilled. The Guardian has arrived. And when the darkness comes, we will not face it alone." The crowd erupted in cheers. Thousands of Valari voices rose up in celebration, echoing across the mountains and filling the sky. But Taeho was not paying attention to the crowd. He was looking at Yuna, who had taken his hand again. "Thank you," she said quietly, so only he could hear. "Thank you for believing in me." Taeho squeezed her hand gently. "Thank you for believing in me first," he replied. And there, standing hand in hand with a little princess who had seen him in her dreams, Taeho finally understood his purpose. He was not a hero because of what he could do. He was a hero because of what he refused to stop doing. The darkness was coming, but so was he, and he would never run away. The news spread quickly through the Valari Empire. A human had been brought to the royal palace. The young princess had identified him as the guardian from an ancient prophecy. The queen herself had shown him the sacred archives. Within hours, everyone was talking about it. Tae-Ho was given a room in the palace while the queen decided what to do with him. It was a beautiful room with soft beds and large windows that looked out over the city. But he did not feel comfortable. He felt like a prisoner waiting for judgment. The next morning, the queen called a great meeting. All the important leaders and advisors of the Valari Empire gathered in the throne room. There were generals in shining armor, priests in flowing robes, and scholars carrying ancient books. They all came to hear about the human and the prophecy. Tae-Ho stood at the center of the room, feeling very small. Hundreds of Valari eyes watched him. Most of them looked suspicious. Some looked disgusted. A few looked curious. "This is absurd," one of the generals said loudly. He was a tall Valari with dark blue skin and cold eyes. "The Guardian is supposed to save our people. How can this weak human be the one the prophecy speaks of?" Many in the crowd nodded in agreement. Whispers filled the room. "Look at him," the general continued, pointing at Tae-Ho. "He has no natural weapons. His body is soft and breakable. He cannot even breathe in space without a suit. How can such a creature protect us from anything?" An old priest stepped forward. He had white hair and kind eyes, and he moved slowly with a walking stick. "General Quan," he said calmly, "the prophecy does not say the Guardian will be the strongest or the most powerful. It says the Guardian will come from beyond our stars. It says the Guardian will have a spirit that does not break." He looked at Tae-Ho with interest. "I have studied humans for many years. They are strange creatures, yes. Their bodies are weak compared to ours. But there is something about their minds, their spirits, that is different from any other species I have seen." "Stories and legends," General Quan said angrily. "That is all this is. We are the Valari Empire. We have the greatest fleet in the galaxy. We have technology that other species cannot even understand. We do not need a human to save us." And yet, the old priest said quietly, "The princess has the sight. Her visions have never been wrong. If she says this human is the Guardian, should we not at least consider the possibility?" The room erupted into arguments. Some agreed with the general. They thought it was shameful to believe a human could be important to their future. Others agreed with the priest. They thought the prophecy should be respected. The queen raised her hand, and the room fell silent immediately. "I understand your concerns," she said, her voice calm and powerful. "I had the same doubts when I first saw my daughter's drawing. How could a human be connected to our ancient prophecy? How could this small, fragile creature be the answer to our prayers?" She stood up from her throne and walked toward Tae-Ho. The crowd parted to let her pass. "But then I remembered something," she continued. "I remembered the stories about how humans first came to space. They did not have advanced technology. They did not have help from other species. They built their own ships with metal and fire. They crossed the darkness of space in vehicles that we would consider nothing more than flying coffins." She stopped in front of Tae-Ho and looked at him carefully. Thousands of them died in those early journeys. Their ships exploded. Their colonies failed. They faced diseases and disasters and loneliness beyond imagination. And yet they kept going. They kept trying. They refused to stop. She turned to face the crowd. "That is not weakness. That is strength of a different kind. A strength that we Valari have forgotten how to have." General Quan shook his head angrily. "Pretty words, Your Majesty, but words will not stop the darkness if it truly comes. We need weapons. We need soldiers, not a human diplomat." "Then let us test him," someone said from the crowd. Everyone turned to look. It was Princess Yuna. She had sneaked into the meeting and was standing near the door, her golden eyes bright with determination. "Yuna," the queen said, surprised. "You should not be here. This meeting is for adults." "But mother, they do not believe me," Yuna said, walking forward. "They think I am just a child with bad dreams. Let them test him. Let them see what I have seen." General Quam laughed coldly. "And how do you suggest we test him, little princess? Should we ask him to fight one of our warriors? He would be dead in seconds." "Not a fight of bodies," Yuna said firmly. "A fight of wills. The Temple of Visions. Let him enter it. Let him face what is inside. If he is truly the guardian, he will survive. If he is not, we will know for certain." The crowd gasped. The Temple of Visions was a sacred place. It was said that anyone who entered would face their greatest fears. Most Valari who tried did not survive. Their minds broke from the terror inside. "You cannot be serious," Teho said. "What exactly happens in this temple?" The old priest stepped forward again. "The temple shows you your deepest fears," he explained. "It reaches into your mind and creates visions that feel completely real. Many who enter never come out. Their minds are destroyed by what they see." "And you want me to go in there?" Teho asked. "It is the only way to prove yourself," Yuna said, looking at him with pleading eyes. "Please, I know you can do this. I have seen you face the darkness in my dreams. You did not run. You did not break. You stood and fought until the very end." Teho looked at the little princess. She believed in him so completely, so absolutely. He did not understand why. He did not understand any of this. But he knew one thing. He could not let her down. He took a deep breath and turned to face the queen. "I will do it," he said. "I will enter the temple." The room went silent. Even General Kwan looked surprised. "Are you sure?" the queen asked. "Many have died in that temple. If you fail, there will be no saving you." Teho nodded. "I am sure. If this is what it takes to prove that your daughter is right, then I will do it. And if I am wrong, if I am not the guardian, then at least we will know the truth." The queen studied his face for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. "Very well. Tomorrow morning, you will enter the Temple of Visions. May the stars protect you." That night, Teho sat alone in his room, looking out at the stars. He thought about his home on Earth. He thought about his family, his friends, everyone he had left behind. He wondered if he would ever see them again. A soft knock came at his door. "Come in," he said. The door opened, and Princess Yuna slipped inside. She was wearing her nightgown and carrying a small object in her hands. "You should be sleeping," Teho said gently. "I could not sleep," she admitted. "I was worried about you." She walked over and held out the object. It was a small stone, blue and smooth, glowing faintly in the darkness. "This is a memory stone," she said. "My father gave it to me before he died. He said it would keep me safe when I was afraid." She pressed it into Teho's hand. "I want you to have it. For tomorrow." Teho felt tears forming in his eyes. This little girl, this princess he had never met before yesterday, was giving him her most precious possession. "Yuna, I cannot take this. It is from your father. He would want you to have it," she said firmly. "He was brave, like you. He would have liked you." She hugged Teho tightly, her small arms wrapping around his waist. "Please do not die," she whispered. "You are my guardian. I need you." Teho hugged her back, holding the memory stone tightly in his hand. "I will not die," he promised. "I will survive. For you?" And he meant it. The throne room was silent. Everyone stared at the small princess holding the human's hand. The advisors whispered to each other in shock. Even the guards, who were trained to show no emotion, looked surprised. But Princess Yuna did not notice any of this. She was too busy studying Taiho's face with her bright golden eyes. "You are exactly like I saw in my dreams," she said happily. "The same face, the same eyes, even the same way you stand." Taiho knelt down so he could look at her properly. He did not know why, but something about this child made him feel calm. The fear he had felt earlier was slowly fading away. "Princess Yuna," he said gently, "can you tell me more about your dreams? What exactly did you see?" Yuna nodded eagerly. She seemed excited to talk about her visions, like a child who had a secret she wanted to share. "They started 1 month ago," she said. "At first, I just saw your face. You were smiling at me and telling me not to be afraid. I did not know who you were, but I felt safe when I saw you." She paused and looked down at her feet. Her smile faded a little. Then the dreams changed. They became darker. I saw fire everywhere. Our beautiful city was burning. Ships were falling from the sky like stars. People were screaming and running. It was very scary. Taiho felt his heart grow heavy. He could see the fear in Yuna's eyes as she remembered these terrible visions. "But you were always there," she continued, looking up at him again. "In every dream, you were there. You stood in front of me with your arms wide, blocking the fire and the darkness. You protected me. You saved me." She reached out and touched his scar again. "That is why I drew this picture. I wanted to remember your face. I wanted to remember the man who saves me." Taiho did not know what to say. How could he be this person she was talking about? He was just a simple diplomat. He was not a hero. He was not a warrior. He was just a normal human trying to do his job. "Princess," he said softly, "I do not know if I am the person you think I am. I am not special. I do not have any powers or great abilities. I'm just me." Yuna shook her head firmly. "You are wrong. You are very special. Humans are special." She took his hand again and held it tightly. "In my dreams, I saw many things. I saw how humans fight. They do not give up. They do not run away. When everything is burning and everyone is afraid, humans stand and fight. That is why you are the guardian. Not because you are strong, because you are brave." The queen stood up from her throne and walked toward them. Her face was still pale, but her expression had changed. The suspicion was still there, but there was something else too. Something like hope. "Yuna," she said gently, "that is enough for now. You should not tire yourself." "But mother, I have so much more to tell him." Yuna protested. "He needs to know about the shadow creatures. He needs to know about the..." "Enough," the queen said firmly. "We will continue this later." Yuna looked disappointed, but she obeyed her mother. She let go of Taiho's hand and stepped back. The queen looked at Taiho with complicated eyes. "Come with me," she said. "I want to show you something." She turned and walked toward a small door at the side of the throne room. Taiho followed her, unsure of what was happening. Yuna stayed behind with her nursemaids, waving at Taiho as he left. The queen led him through a narrow hallway and up a long staircase. They walked in silence for several minutes until they reached a large room at the top of a tower. The room was filled with old books and scrolls. Strange symbols were carved into the walls, and the air smelled like dust and ancient things. "This is our archive," the queen said, walking to a large table in the center of the room. "It contains the history of our people. Every important event, every prophecy, every vision that our seers have ever had is recorded here." She picked up an old scroll and unrolled it carefully. The paper was yellow with age, and the writing was faded. "This was written by my ancestor 3,000 years ago," she said. "She was the greatest seer our people have ever known. She predicted the rise and fall of empires. She saw wars before they started. and she wrote about something called the Great Darkness. Taeho moved closer to look at the scroll. He could not read the Valari language, but he could see drawings on the paper. They showed strange creatures made of shadow attacking a city. Fire and destruction were everywhere. "What is the Great Darkness?" he asked. "We do not know exactly," the Queen admitted. "The prophecy says it is a force from beyond our galaxy. Something ancient and evil that sleeps in the empty spaces between stars. It has destroyed many civilizations before, and according to my ancestor, it will come for us one day." She pointed to a figure in one of the drawings. It was small and simple, but Taeho could see that it showed a person standing against the darkness. "The prophecy also speaks of a guardian," the Queen continued. "A being who will come from the stars to protect us when the darkness arrives. For thousands of years, we thought this guardian would be a Valari, one of our own people, a great hero with special powers." She looked at Taeho with strange eyes. "But my daughter believes the guardian is human. She believes it is you." Taeho felt dizzy again. This was too much. He was just a normal person. He could not fight ancient evil or save civilizations. "Your Majesty," he said, "I think there has been a mistake. I cannot be this guardian. I am nothing special. I have no powers, no army, no special training. How could I possibly fight something that has destroyed civilizations?" The Queen smiled slightly. It was the first time he had seen her smile. "You know," she said, "when we first discovered humans, we did not think much of you. Your technology was simple. Your lifespans were short. You had no special abilities. Many of my people thought you were nothing more than clever animals." She set down the scroll and looked at him directly. "But over the years, we have watched you. We have seen how you face challenges. When your ships fail, you fix them with anything you can find. When your colonies are attacked, you fight back with rocks and sticks if you have to. When one of you falls, the others carry them. You never give up. Never." She walked toward a window and looked out at her city below. "That is something we Valari do not understand. We are powerful, yes, but we have always been powerful. We have never had to fight for survival the way humans have. We have never known true desperation." She turned back to Taeho. "Perhaps that is why my daughter sees you as the guardian. Perhaps that is what we need. Not power, not magic, but the human will to survive. The human refusal to accept defeat." Taeho stood in silence, trying to understand everything he had heard. The prophecy, the darkness, the guardian. It all seemed impossible. And yet, a little girl had drawn his face without ever meeting him. She had known about his scar. She had known his name. Maybe impossible things were possible after all. "Your Majesty," he said finally, "I do not know if I am this guardian or not. I do not know if I can do what your prophecy says. But I can tell you one thing." He stood up straight and looked the Queen in the eyes. "If something tries to hurt that little girl, if something tries to hurt your people, I will do everything in my power to stop it. I may not be a hero. I may not be special, but I am human. And we do not run, fight." The Queen studied him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she nodded. "Perhaps my daughter is right about you after all." The silence in the throne room was heavy. Taeho could hear his own heart beating in his chest. He looked at the drawing again, hoping he had made a mistake. Hoping it was not really him in that picture, but it was. There was no doubt. The Queen watched him carefully. Her silver eyes never blinked. Behind her, several Valari advisors stood in the shadows, whispering to each other. Taeho could not hear their words, but he knew they were talking about him. "Your Majesty," he said slowly, "I do not understand this. I promise you, I have never met your daughter. I have never even been inside this palace before today." "And yet," the Queen said, holding up the drawing. "My daughter knew exactly what you look like. She drew your face, your scar, your uniform. She even drew the number on your ship correctly." Toho shook his head. "That is impossible. I do not know how she could have done that." "Neither do I," the queen replied coldly. "That is why you are here." She stood up from her throne and walked down the steps toward him. She was tall, taller than Tejo had expected. When she stopped in front of him, he had to look up slightly to meet her eyes. "I love my daughter more than anything in this universe," the queen said softly. "She is young. She is innocent. And she is all I have left since her father died." Tejo saw something in the queen's eyes. Behind the coldness and the suspicion, there was fear. A mother's fear for her child. "When she showed me this drawing," the queen continued, "I was confused. When she told me the man's name was Tejo, I was shocked. When my advisors found a human diplomat with that exact name and that exact face, I became afraid." She held the drawing closer to him. "Look at it carefully, human. Tell me if you notice anything else." Tejo took the paper with trembling hands. He studied the picture more closely. The child had used bright colors. The sky behind him was orange and red, like fire. And now that he looked more carefully, he could see other details he had missed before. There were flames in the background. Large, terrible flames that seemed to be destroying everything. Buildings were falling. Ships were crashing from the sky. And in the middle of all that destruction, the drawing showed him standing with his arms stretched wide, as if he was protecting something behind him. Tejo felt cold. "What is this?" he whispered. "That is what I want to know," the queen said. "My daughter says this is not just a picture. She says it is something she saw, something that has not happened yet." Tejo looked up at her. "You mean a vision? Of the future?" The queen nodded slowly. "The Valari royal family has a gift. It is rare, and it does not appear in every generation. But some members of our family can see things that will happen. My grandmother had this gift. My mother did not. And now, it seems my daughter has it too." She took the drawing back from Tejo and looked at it with sad eyes. "Yuna started having these visions 1 month ago. At first, they were simple. She saw small things. A bird flying through a window. A servant dropping a cup. We thought it was just a child's imagination." The queen's voice became quieter. Then she started seeing darker things. Fire. Death. Ships falling from the sky. And in every vision, she saw the same person. A human with dark hair and a scar on his face. A human who was trying to protect her. Tejo felt dizzy. This was too much. How could a child he had never met see him in her dreams? How could she know his face, his name, his ship? "Your Majesty," he said, "I do not know why your daughter is seeing me, but I promise you I mean no harm to her or to your people. I am just a diplomat. I am nobody important." The queen studied his face for a long moment. Tejo held her gaze, trying to show her that he was telling the truth. "I want to believe you," she said finally, "but I cannot ignore what my daughter has seen. She believes you are important. She believes you are connected to her future somehow." She turned and walked back toward her throne. "That is why I have decided to do something unusual. I am going to bring my daughter here. I want her to meet you face to face." Tejo's eyes widened. "Meet me? But your Majesty, I do not think that is a good idea. I might upset her, or my daughter has been asking to meet you for 3 days," the queen interrupted. "She is not afraid of you. In fact, she is excited. She keeps calling you the protector." She sat back down on her throne and looked at him with those cold silver eyes. "I do not know if you are her protector or her enemy. I do not know if these visions are real or if they are just the dreams of a confused child. But I need to find out. and the only way to do that is to bring you two together." The queen raised her hand, and one of her advisors stepped forward. He bowed low and waited for her command. "Bring Princess Yuna to the throne room," she said. The advisor looked surprised. "Your Majesty, are you sure? The princess has never met an outsider before. And this human—" "I know what I am doing," the queen said firmly. "Bring my daughter." The advisor bowed again and hurried out of the room. The doors closed behind him with a heavy sound. Taeho stood alone in the middle of the throne room, his heart racing. He was about to meet a princess who had somehow seen his face in her dreams. A princess who believed he was going to protect her from something terrible. He thought about the drawing again. The flames, the falling ships, the destruction. What did it all mean? Was it really a vision of the future? Or was it just a child's nightmare? He did not have time to think about it anymore. The doors opened again and a small figure walked into the room. Princess Yuna was young, maybe 7 or 8 years old in human years. She had the same pale blue skin as her mother, but her eyes were different. They were golden, bright and warm, like 2 small suns. Her silver hair was tied in 2 braids, and she wore a simple white dress. She walked toward Taeho without any fear. Her steps were quick and excited, like she was meeting an old friend. When she reached him, she stopped and looked up at his face with a huge smile. "It is you," she said happily. "You are really here." Taeho did not know what to say. He looked down at this small girl, who seemed so happy to see him, and he felt a strange warmth in his chest. "Hello, princess," he said softly. "My name is Taeho," she finished for him. "I know. I have seen you many times in my dreams." She reached up and touched the scar on his cheek gently. Her small fingers were cold, but her touch was soft and careful. "You got this scar protecting someone," she said quietly. "You always protect people. That is what you do." Taeho's breath caught in his throat. She was right. He had gotten the scar 5 years ago when he saved a child from a burning building on Earth. He had never told anyone that story. No one in the galaxy knew how he got his scar, but this little girl knew. Yuna took his hand and smiled up at him. "Do not be scared," she said. "I know you do not understand yet, but you will. The darkness is coming, and you are the only one who can stop it." She looked back at her mother on the throne. "He is the one, Mother. He is the guardian from the stars." The queen's face was pale. She gripped the arms of her throne tightly, her silver eyes wide with shock. And Taeho stood frozen, holding the hand of a child who somehow knew his deepest secrets. The message came at midnight. Earth time. Park Taeho was sleeping in his small room on the human trading station when his communication device started making noise. He opened his eyes slowly and looked at the blue light blinking on his desk. For a moment, he thought about ignoring it. He was tired. The last 3 days had been full of meetings with alien traders, and his body needed rest, but something told him this was important. He sat up and pressed the button. A face appeared on the screen. It was not human. The creature had pale blue skin, large dark eyes, and silver hair that moved like water. Taeho recognized the species immediately. They were the Volari, one of the oldest and most powerful races in this part of the galaxy. "Human diplomat Park Taeho," the Volari said. Its voice was cold and formal. "The Queen of the Volari Empire requests your presence. You will come to the royal palace immediately." Taeho blinked. He was just a low-level diplomat. He handled small trade deals and minor disputes. He had never even seen the Volari Queen, let alone spoken to her. Why would she want to meet him? "May I ask what this is about?" he said carefully. The Volari's eyes narrowed. "The Queen does not explain herself to humans. You will come. A transport will arrive in 1 hour." The screen went dark. Taeho sat in silence for a long moment. His heart was beating fast. This was strange, very strange. The Valari were known for being proud and distant. They rarely invited humans to their palace. In fact, most Valari thought humans were primitive creatures, barely worth their attention. So why did the queen want to see him? He stood up and walked to his small window. Outside, he could see the stars stretching across the black sky. The human trading station floated in the middle of space, far from Earth. Taiho had been living here for 3 years now. He missed his home sometimes. He missed the smell of rain and the sound of birds in the morning. But he had a job to do. Humanity was still new to the galactic community. They needed diplomats like him to build relationships with other species. He took a deep breath and started to get ready. 1 hour later, a Valari transport ship arrived at the station. Taiho stepped inside and found himself surrounded by guards. They were tall and silent, wearing silver armor that seemed to glow in the dim light. None of them spoke to him. They simply watched him with their dark, unreadable eyes. The journey to the Valari homeworld took about 2 hours. Taiho tried to stay calm, but his mind kept racing with questions. Had he done something wrong? Had he offended someone important? He thought back to all his recent meetings, trying to remember if he had made any mistakes. But he could not think of anything. When the ship landed, Taiho stepped out and found himself standing in front of the royal palace. It was the most beautiful building he had ever seen. The walls were made of white stone that sparkled like diamonds. Tall towers reached up toward the purple sky, and gardens full of strange flowers surrounded the entire structure. The guards led him inside. They walked through long hallways decorated with paintings and statues. Everything was clean and perfect. Taiho felt small and out of place. His simple human uniform looked dull compared to the beauty around him. Finally, they reached a large door made of gold. The guards stopped, and one of them looked at Taiho. "The queen is inside," the guard said. "You will bow when you enter. You will not speak unless she speaks to you first. You will show respect at all times. Do you understand?" Taiho nodded. "I understand." The doors opened slowly, and Taiho stepped into the throne room. It was enormous. The ceiling was so high that Taiho could barely see it. Bright lights floated in the air like small stars, filling the room with a soft glow. And at the far end, sitting on a throne made of crystal, was the queen. She was beautiful, but in a cold and frightening way. Her skin was pale blue, like all Valari, but her eyes were different. They were silver, and they seemed to look right through him. Her long silver hair fell down her back like a waterfall, and she wore a dress made of material that seemed to change color as she moved. Taiho walked toward her slowly and stopped at the bottom of the steps leading to her throne. He bowed low, just as the guards had told him. "Rise, human," the queen said. Her voice was soft but filled with power. It echoed through the room like music. Taiho stood up straight and looked at her. He tried to keep his face calm, but inside, he was nervous. Something was wrong. He could feel it. The queen's expression was not friendly. In fact, she looked angry. No, not angry. She looked suspicious. "You are Park Taiho," she said. It was not a question. "Yes, Your Majesty," he replied. "You work as a diplomat for the human government." "Yes, Your Majesty." The queen leaned forward slightly. Her silver eyes studied him like he was an insect under a glass. Taiho felt a chill run down his spine. "Tell me, human," she said slowly. "Have you ever met my daughter?" Taiho frowned. Her daughter? He had heard that the queen had a young daughter, a princess, but he had never seen her. In fact, very few outsiders had ever seen the princess. She was kept hidden inside the palace, protected from the outside world. "No, Your Majesty," he said honestly. "I have never had that honor." The queen stared at him for a long moment. Her expression did not change. Then, slowly, she reached down beside her throne and picked something up. It was a piece of paper, old and crumpled. She held it up so Taeho could see it. "Then explain this," she said. Tao looked at the paper. His blood turned cold. It was a drawing. A child's drawing, made with simple colors and rough lines. But the image was clear. It showed a man in a human uniform. He had dark hair, a scar on his left cheek, and he was standing in front of a ship with the human flag painted on the side. It was him. Every detail was perfect. The scar, the uniform, even the way he stood with his hands behind his back. Taeho touched his cheek without thinking. The scar was there, just as it appeared in the drawing. He had gotten it 5 years ago in an accident on Earth. "How?" he whispered. The Queen's voice cut through the silence like a knife. "My daughter drew this picture 3 days ago. She has never left this palace. She has never seen a human in her life. She has never even seen a picture of you." She leaned forward, her silver eyes burning with cold fire. "So tell me, human, how does my daughter know you?" Taeho had no answer. He stood there, frozen, staring at the drawing of himself, made by a child he had never met. And for the first time in his life, he felt truly afraid.